Hey, hi, Michael Didier here. Thank you for joining me. I hope all's well with you. Today is, what date is today? Today is the 30th day of April. It's a double Sabbath. We have our normal Sabbath, Saturday, the 7th day, but we also have the 7th day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Tonight, we're going to go shopping almost immediately. We got to get things for the young man who's with us right now. So we've got our nephew staying with us. But, you know, he got here and we thought, wait a second, we don't have any kid food. So he's not going to eat broccoli. He's not going to eat cauliflower. Not going to eat Brussels sprouts. So we had to quick think, what are we going to eat? So we're going to do some shopping tonight after dark. We're also going to do a campfire, which is going to be nice. Hey, would you like to see what I did for Passover this year? Here's some pictures. Let me just pull them up for you. Here's the fire pit that we used. This worked out really well. Big ring, about 3 foot in diameter, held a lot of wood, but we didn't need to but keep the wood nice and low. And then we actually raised the grill just a pinch so that the meat didn't get too hot. But we wanted to have a good flame. I like to have the flames licking up at the package that we put on it when we're cooking it. In 2 hours, we had our meat done. You got to get it up to 180 degrees for lamb, goat. And we got it up to 205 degrees in 2 hours. So it was, I mean, the meat just absolutely fell off the bone. I don't think that I took any pictures of that particular portion of it, but let me take you through this a little bit. If you are queasy about seeing blood, let me give you a little disclaimer. It's not bad, but there is a couple shots that has the animal that has been killed. I mean, that's what we're doing. Here's the next one. We were putting blood on the doorway. This is after the animal was slaughtered. We dug a little hole, and actually it's the first time usually the owner of the property is the one who does the slaughtering. And for the first time, I usually have the animal standing up between my legs. And this is the first time that he put the animal on his back and did the cut from there. It worked really well. Our animal was gone within a minute. He bled out and was still. I was very pleased about that. Probably the best Passover I've ever had. Still cut a little bit more than I would have liked, but you know what? We're all learning. Here's another door. We had actually 2 doors. Whoops, where did it go? There's the other door. There is a back door on this house, so we put the blood on that one. And this man, Tim, was about 6'5". He was able to reach the top of the door. Here we are, just getting ready to make a cut. We planned to actually skin him, and then after he was skinned, we were going to take the offal out of him. But he nicked the cavity. You know, if you have a hernia, there's a cavity. Not even sure what to call it.
Downhill wall.
Yeah, it's a wall of lining that holds all the organs in. If you get a hernia, it's because you've cut that lining and it needs to be restitched many times. But when we were skinning him, he nicked that, and we ended up having to do the getting rid of the offal right away. Here's the next picture. This is just before we started. It was just a small cut, no, not a small cut, a cut on his throat. And like I say, he was gone in no time. The men that I was keeping it with were 6. One was the owner of the property, wonderful man. Another one was this man. His name was David. And he came from Michigan, drove all the way 19 hours, one way, to come to this Passover. The other 4 that were there were all young men, probably in their late 20s, probably 30s. mid to late 30s, I'd guess. You think 20s?
I think late 20s. Maybe.
Late 20s? All right, she thinks late 20s. Some of them look really young, but they actually had 10 years on the SWAT team, another couple years in the Army, and they've done a lot of things. But these guys run a school where they actually teach people how to defend themselves. Quite interesting. And they also teach police force how to defend themselves. These guys, I mean, you can tell they're in pretty good shape. I don't know if you can... Well, they're in great shape. They spend an hour each day doing weight training, cardiovascular training as well. And then they spend another hour doing hand-to-hand combat. Can you imagine what these guys can do? You don't want to get in trouble with these guys. This man in particular is extremely strong. Here is what our package looked like when we had it all done. I lay out the burlap. I have a piece of burlap that I lay out, and then I lay out banana leaves and put spices on the animal and then wrap it up in there and then put this Reynolds wrap, aluminum wrap, all around that to hold in the heat. Works so well. Like I say, when we had this done at the end of 2 hours, it was falling off the bone. We didn't even need to cut it. We could take a fork and just lift off the meat and put it on our plates. Well, we put it on a big plate and then we brought it into the house. Here's the last picture. This is burning up the last of the remains of the meat. We had burnt the offal even before the offal. The offal is the guts, everything that we took out of the animal. What we're burning here is the last of the carcass. So the skull, the skin, the bones. And by morning, it was dust. If there was any bones, you could tap them with a little stick, and they just turned to dust. Anyway, very successful Passover. I was very pleased. Yeah, and then we stayed at this little cabin. It was off the grid. Pretty neat. Runs all the electricity. It's on a well, but runs all the electricity off a solar panel. All right, well, let's go to our class. This is what we left off last week. We had done 50 last week, and we had done chapter 56 of Yasher, and I'm going to go through that very briefly. Well, you know me, briefly can be a little bit longer. I'll try to cut it short. We saw Joseph die. No, we saw Jacob die last time. Do you remember? What an interesting story that was. Here is Joseph. It says, fell on his father's face and wept over him. He had just died the week before. The Egyptians mourned. He talks about, my father made me swear, saying, behold, I am dying. In my grave, which I dug for myself in the land of Egypt, there you shall bury me. He had dug his own grave. Talked about the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of the house, elders of his house, and the elders of the land of Egypt. These are all men, elders, servants, avadim of Pharaoh. Actually, the avadim of Pharaoh are the elders of his house and the elders of the land of Egypt, the heads of the households of all the land of Egypt. And then it says, as well as the house of Joseph, his brothers, his father's house. Only their little ones and their wives stayed at home. They all went to bury Jacob. And they went all the way to Haran to do it. Oh my goodness. What an interesting experience. We're going to see it in just a moment. This just simply says, and there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a great gathering. Well, we hardly can tell all the things that actually happened. The buyer, we're going to talk about that in a moment, that they carried him on. Do you remember they carried him in the same way that we camp in the wilderness? The same way that we march in the wilderness. Here, I have a picture of that. Israel's camp. I think this is it right here. Yeah. They carried the bier. Judah, Issachar, Zebulun in the front, all barefoot. The only people they didn't have carry him was Joseph and Levi. Isn't that interesting? We'll talk about that in a little bit more. Levi was the priest. It's kind of like an Aaron picture and a Moses picture, I think. The king and the priest leading the people, and the sons are carrying him. He wasn't allowed to have the sons carry him. Only the sons could carry him. Fortunately, they were all alive still. Went to the cave of Machpelah. You know, we miss out so much by not having Yasher if we're just learning Torah. For years, I didn't know there was more to this story. They went to Abel Mitzrayim. Oh, that was interesting. What was the name of that? Abel Mitzrayim. It meant something. Mourning for the Egyptians. Mitzrayim, Egyptian. Abel, mourning, apparently. Well, doesn't say anything about Esau, does it? We're going to see in Yasher that this was the end of Esau, the man of the flesh and the man of the spirit. Really, the man of the spirit and the man of the flesh both died in the same year. Wow. Well, at the end of this chapter, Joseph dies. Oh my goodness, so much stuff is going to happen. Remember, Jacob died at 147. 147, 17 years. Seems like Jacob was in Egypt for 17 years. Does that sound right? So he was 130. Yeah, that would make sense. He was 130 when he talked to Pharaoh, when he came to Egypt. Always like to keep these dates sorted out. So he died at 147. Joseph now is dying at 110. And that's where we left off. And that was the last verse of Genesis. Oh man, I hate to leave Genesis. I love Genesis so much. But we have much, much, much to learn. Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So exciting. Well, it's going to take a while to get through all that. But we'll do it. We will get through all this. More and more, we're going to have less of Yasher. More, we're going to have less. Yeah, we're going to see. When we are talking about building the tabernacle, when we're talking about some of the camping that we did in the wilderness, there's nothing in Yasher that is comparable to that. So it's more the storyline that Yasher is going to have. So we're going to have less of Yasher. We're up to chapter 56. How many chapters are there in Yasher, honey? It was like 90?
91.
91, yeah, bunch. But we're making significant progress, and we're going to be in Yasher here today, all day, and next week as well. Let me go to Yasher. This is the material that we covered last week. It was the burial of Joseph. He died. The Elohim of your ancestors will visit you and bring you back to the land. This is just before he died. Bury me in the cave of Machpelah. His son swore. Remember, he first made, days before, he made Joseph swear. Remember, he put his hand under his yarek to swear that this would happen. Now, just before he dies, he does the same things for his sons. Here, this is interesting. It says, on the next day, Jacob again called his sons, and they all assembled and came to him and sat before him. And Jacob on that day blessed his sons before his death. Each man did he bless according to his blessing. Look what it says now. Behold, is it written in the book of Torah of Yehovah appertaining to Israel. I like that. There's a couple places in Yasher where it refers to Torah, and there's a couple places in Torah and in the Tanakh, even in the New Testament, that refers to Yasher. I think that gives it that much more credibility. But Look at the last words that Jacob is saying here. I think it's interesting. He says, teach thy sons the bow and all weapons of war. That's kind of what these men that I was just telling you about are doing. They're preparing for the last days. Ooh, my goodness. You know what? There's men who actually believe we're coming to these last days. They want to prepare for war. Teach thy sons the bow and all weapons of war, in order that they may fight the battles of their brother. This is Judah. But you know what? All Israel had their sons trained for war. We had no standing army. When we had someone come against us, the king calls and we all answer. And if you're afraid, you don't even have to go. So now he's going to give instructions on how his sons are going to carry him. Here it is. Howbeit, take heed, I pray you, that none of your sons carry me, only yourselves, talking to his sons. And this is the manner you shall do unto me when you carry my body and go to the land of Canaan to bury me. Well, Levi wasn't one of them. Look what he says. Let not Levi carry you, for he and his sons will carry the ark of the covenant of Jehovah. There isn't even an ark of the covenant yet. But they're already talking about what Levi is going to do. Isn't that interesting? I always thought that the Levites took their position and got their position once we were in the wilderness. But apparently that's not the case. And we saw something very interesting here. I'm going to read this for you. This is, we got to read these things just so that we can stay in touch with it. Look what it says here. This is talking about when Reuben slept with Bilhah. He was angry because Jacob put his tent with Bilhah instead of Leah after Rachel died. But look what it says in this last verse. At that time, the portion of the birthright, together with the kingly and the priestly offices. Hear that? The birthright, the kingly, and the priestly offices were all together. That was the Melchizedek order. But it says it was removed from the sons of Reuben, Reuben's seed. It was going to come down through Reuben's seed, the firstborn. For he had profaned his father's bed. And the birthright, here's the birthrights given to Joseph. The kingly office to Judah. And the priesthood to Levi. Isn't that amazing? You guys, we've got to understand this. This is when the Melchizedek priesthood was broken up. This is why we had Joseph and Levi not carrying this. It's the king and the priest. Judah and Levi. Well, so very interesting. Let's finish that. I want to continue on. There's just a couple more things that I wanted to talk about. Again, Jacob's last words here in Yasher. Look what he says. Oh, this is profound. And it shall come to pass when you shall go after Elohim to serve him, and will teach your sons, your seed after you, and your sons' sons, I guess we could have sons and sons' sons, to know Yehovah. Hear that? We are going to teach our sons and our sons' sons to know Yehovah. Oh my goodness, we teach them his commandments, his statutes, his judgments. We teach them the stories, but do we really ever get to know Yehovah? That's the goal. The goal is to know Yehovah. That's why he gave us his word, so that we can know who he is. What makes him hurt? What makes him happy? What makes him sad? What are his goals, dreams, and desires? Men, we want to live for those. Then will Yehovah raise up unto you and your seed a servant. A servant. Who's the servant going to be? From amongst your sons, and Jehovah will deliver you through his hand from all affliction and bring you out of Egypt and bring you back to the land of your father to inherit it securely. Who's the person we're talking about? This servant. It's Moses. We're going to see that Miriam is going to prophesy her brother's coming. Well, Jacob died, as I said, 147. Everyone mourned. His family mourned. His wives, the wives of the sons mourned. Osnath, Joseph's woman, and the women with her mourned. All the land of Egypt mourned. There was women who came down from Canaan to mourn. Isn't that interesting that women came down to mourn? I wonder if they were professional mourners. I wonder. That could be exactly what's going on. I would like to know the rest of that story. Well, Joseph commanded the doctors, the medical people, to embalm his father. They wept for 70 days. It says, and Pharaoh commanded that it should be proclaimed throughout the land of Egypt, whoever goeth not up with Joseph and his brethren to the land of Canaan to bury Jacob shall die. Wow. Well, here's the buyer. We're talking a burial of kings. This is Melchizedek that's being buried. The bier was of pure gold, and it was inlaid round about with onyx stones and bdellium. On the covering of his bier was gold woven work, joined with threads, and over them were hooks of onyx stones and bdellium. Beautiful. They went up armed towards Canaan. Oh my goodness, can you imagine what Canaan was thinking when all Egypt is coming up armed? Do you think they had some anxiety? They kind of knew what was going on because they had heard about Jacob's death. But I would think there would be some anxiety. I mean, this is a lot of men who are coming up. It says 50 of Jacob's servants went in front of the bier, and they strew along the road myrrh and aloe and all manner of perfume. And all Jacob's seed that carried the bier walked on the perfumery. And Jacob's seed went before them, Jacob's servants went before them, strewing the perfume along the road. Well, the Canaanite kings, remember, they were subservient to Jacob for years. They were paying Jacob tribute. They loved Jacob. They knew he was a just man, a kind man, loved equity, and did righteousness. He was fair. They put their crowns on his bier and encircled, I think it was 31 crowns. Well, Esau heard about what was going on. And Esau, with his seed, came to Canaan. They first went to this place, Abel Mitzrayim, where the kings of Canaan were coming to. But they left early, and they went to the cave at Machpelah in Hebron, Kirjath Arba. And they created a defense because they decided that Jacob was not going to be buried in that cave. Listen to what they said. And they came to Kirjath Arba, to the cave. And as they came, Esau stood with his sons against Joseph and all his brethren as a hindrance in the cave, saying, Jacob shall not be buried therein, for it belongeth to us and to our father. Our father. Remember, when Isaac was buried, Jacob and Esau had to make a decision. Jacob gave Esau all the possessions of Isaac. the servants, the gold, the bdellium, the sheep, the goats, the cattle, everything that was tangible that belonged to Isaac. The only thing Jacob took was the land. And this cave was part of the agreement. Now, Esau is saying it's his. Well, this is going to create a huge brouhaha. Esau, look at what it says. Esau spoke these things in order to deceive Joseph. Remember, Joseph was in captivity down in Egypt when Isaac died. He's trying to deceive Joseph with his words. For Esau knew that Joseph was not present in those days when Esau sold all belonging to him in the land of Canaan to Jacob. Ooh, liar, liar, pants on fire. He said, surely my father, this is Joseph now speaking, surely my father inserted these things within the record of purchase, testified the record with witnesses, and behold, it is in Egypt. He sent Naphtali, their fastest runner, to go down to get it. But before Naphtali returned, Esau's seed became anxious because they knew they were lying and decided to fight against Jacob's seed, his sons and their sons. And this young man, Cushim, deaf and dumb, came into the battle and knocked off the head of Esau. Esau died at Jacob's burial. Isn't that interesting? You know what? Torah does not let us understand the antagonism that exists between the son of Esau and the sons of Israel, the spiritual men and the men of the flesh. It hasn't changed. We left off right here with them finally, after Esau had his head cut off, the sons of Esau really ran away. They were chased after. We're going to see that in the very next chapter. Here it is right here. We can begin it with this. And it was after this that Esau's seed waged war with Jacob's seed. And Esau's seed fought Jacob's seed in Hebron. And Esau was still lying dead and not buried. And the battle was heavy between them. And the sons of Esau were smitten before Jacob's seed. And Jacob's seed slew the seed of Esau, 80 men. And not one died of the people of Jacob's seed. And the hand of Joseph prevailed over all the people of Esau's seed. And he took Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, and 50 of his men captive. And he bound them with chains of iron and gave them into the hands of his servants. This is Joseph, to bring to Egypt. And it came to pass, when Jacob's seed had taken Zepho and his people captive. Remember, these are all men. There are no ladies here. This is why we're talking about seed. It's not the children of these guys. It's seed. Men are fighting this war. All those that remained were greatly afraid of their lives from Esau's house, lest they should also be taken captive. And they all fled with Eliphaz, Esau's son, and his people. Eliphaz, the eldest son of Esau, is now leading his people after his father died. They took Esau's body with them, and they went on the road to Mount Seir. Remember, they've been staying in the land of Seir. Seir the Horites, staying in his land. Well, watch what happens here. This is very interesting. And they came to Mount Seir, and they buried Esau in Seir. But they had not brought his head with them to Seir, for it was buried in the place where the battle had been in Hebron. They didn't even have a chance to catch his head. And it came to pass, when Esau's seed had fled from before Jacob's seed, Jacob's seed pursued them to the borders of Seir, but they did not slay a single man from amongst them when they pursued them, for Esau's body which they carried with them excited their confusion. So they fled, and Jacob's seed turned back from them and came to the place where their brethren were in Hebron. And they remained there, brethren, remember we're still talking about men, where the brethren remained there on that day and on the next day until they rested from the battle. And it came to pass, on the third day they assembled all Seir's seed. Hear what's going on? They were back in the land of Seir, and they assembled all the seed of the east, a multitude of people like the sands of the sea. You know, I see this sands of the sea. What are we talking about when we talk about the sands of the sea? I mean, the sands of the sea, billions, trillions. You can't number it, can you? Well, how much people is it when we talk about the sands of the sea? Let's be attentive and pay attention to that kind of thing, because those are things that we've got to understand. A multitude of people. We're talking about men people, not lady people, like the sands of the sea. And they went and came down to Egypt to fight Joseph and his brethren in order to deliver their brethren. Remember, Zepho and the 50 men. This is instigated by Eliphaz. Remember, Zepho is Eliphaz's son. And Joseph and all Jacob's seed heard that Esau's seed and look at this, the children of the east. Where do they get this discretionary use? Sometimes they put sons of Esau, sometimes they put children of the east. We're going to see they're going to talk about sons of the east later on. And they're going to talk about the children of Esau. But here it says the sons of Esau. Watch for that. These are things that we've got to understand. This is the discretionary use of the translator that does this. And Joseph and his brethren and the strong men of Egypt went forth and fought in the city of Ramses. And Joseph and his brethren dealt out a tremendous blow against Esau's seed and the east's seed. And they slew them, look at this, they slew them 600,000. 600,000. Well, that gives us a little bit of an idea when we're talking about the sands of the sea, how many are being killed. Did they kill half of them? I'm guessing. Probably had under 1 million men. And they slew among them all the mighty men of Seir, the Horites' seed. There were only a few of them left. And they slew also a great many of the east seed and Esau's seed. Now see here, they're calling Esau. They were talking about the sons of Esau. Now all of a sudden it says the children of Esau. Esau's seed. And Eliphaz, the son of Esau, and all the seed of the east, all fled before Joseph and his brethren. The slaughter was so big, they left. And Joseph and his brethren pursued them. Let me show you where this is on the map. They came right into Egypt. Here it is right here. Here's Ramses. This is where they fought. This is Goshen. This is the land of Goshen right here. They're fighting at Ramses. Brought them back to Sukkot. And then chased them back to Seir. 600,000 men. And Joseph and his brethren pursued them until they came unto Sukkot. And they slew them in Succoth 30 men, and the rest escaped, and they fled each to his city. And Joseph and his brethren and the mighty men of Egypt turned back from them with joy and cheerfulness of heart, for they had smitten all their enemies. And Zepho, Eliphaz's son, and all his men were slaves in Egypt to Jacob's seed, and their pains increased. Hear that? They weren't even involved in the battle. But just because battle was fought concerning them, it sounds like they intensified their bondage. Wow. And when Esau's seed and Seir's seed. Now here they're talking about the sons of Seir, where they were talking about the children of Seir before. And Seir's seed returned to their land. And Seir's seed saw that they had fallen into the hands of Jacob's seed and the people of Egypt on account of the battle of Esau's seed. They don't like it. They lost a lot of men because they were fighting for Esau. Remember, Esau, long ago, Esau, of course, is dead right now. But Esau, long ago, married into Seir's family. He set up camp with Seir. When he moved from Canaan, not Israel, he moved to Seir. He's well established in Seir. Now it says, and Seir's seed said unto Esau's seed. Remember, we're talking about men. Multi-generational men of Esau and multi-generational men of Seir. You have seen, and therefore you know that this camp was on your account. This battle, this confrontation was on your account. And not one mighty man or adept in war remaineth. Seir lost a lot of their mighty men. Now therefore go forth from our land. Be gone! We don't want anything more to do with you. Go from us to the land of Canaan, to the land of your father's dwelling. He's already sold it. What's he gonna do? He's between a rock and a hard place right now. If he goes back to the land of Canaan and Joseph hears about it, there's going to be trouble. But if he stays, there's going to be trouble. Wherefore shall your seed inherit the effects of our seed in latter days. Could say our sons. Certainly is not children. And now we're going back to Esau's seed. The children of Esau would not listen to Seir's seed. And Seir's seed considered to make war with them. Hear that? Something's going on. And Esau's seed sent secretly to Angias, king of Africa. The same is Dinabah, saying, send us some of thy men, and let them come unto us, and we will fight together with Seir the Horites' seed. Really, it makes it sound like they're fighting with Seir the Horites' seed. They're fighting against Seir the Horites' seed. For they have resolved to fight with us, to drive us away from the land. And Angias, king of Dinabah, did so. For he was in those days friendly with Esau's seed. And Angias sent 500 valiant infantry to Esau's seed and 800 cavalry. 5 plus 8, 1,300 men. And Seir's seed sent unto the east seed and unto Midian's seed. Look at what we're talking about. These are all sons of Ishmael. Saying, you have seen what Esau's seed has done to us. Remember, they were in the battle as well. For whose account we are almost all destroyed in their battle with Jacob's seed. Now therefore come unto us and assist us, and we will fight them together. And we will fight them from the land and be avenged of the cause of our brethren who died for the sakes of their battle and their brethren, Jacob's seed. And all the east seed listened to Sair's seed. And they came unto them about 800 men with swords drawn. And Esau's seed fought with Sair's seed at that time in the wilderness of Paran. And Sair's seed prevailed then over Esau's seed. And Sair's seed slew on that day Esau's seed in the battle, about 200 men of the people of Angias, king of Dinhabah. It sounds like Esau's seed didn't get killed. It sounds like Angias' men got killed. And on the second day, Esau's seed came against to fight a second time. And on the second day, Esau's seed came again to fight a second time with Sair's seed. And the battle was sore upon Esau's seed the second time, and it troubled them greatly on account of Sair's seed. And when Esau's seed saw that Sair's seed were more powerful than they, some men of Esau's seed turned and assisted Sair's seed, their enemies. Hear that? These are men who for years have been living with the sons of Sair. Well, they've been living a long time with them. Remember, that was where Jacob or Esau made a covenant with them when he took their daughters. They've made friends there. Now the battle's going bad, and some of Esau's seed is switching sides, helping Sair's seed. Not going to be thought upon very, very well with the rest of Esau's seed. And there fell yet of the people of Esau's seed in the second battle 50 men of the people of Angias, king of Dinhabah. On the third day, Esau's seed heard that some of their brethren had turned from them to fight against them in the second battle. And Esau mourned when he heard this thing. And they said, what shall we do unto our brethren who turned from us to assist Sair's seed, our enemies? And Esau's seed again sent to Angias, king of Dinhabah, saying, send us again other men, that with them we may fight Sair's seed, for they have already twice been heavier than we. And Angias again sent to Esau's seed about 600 valiant men, and they came to assist Esau's seed. And in 10 days' time, Esau's seed again waged war, and Sair's seed with Sair's seed in the wilderness of Paran. Wilderness of Paran. Let's talk about where that's at. Just so you know, I think this is important that we talk about this. I always think it's helpful for me to see where these things are. Here's the wilderness of Paran. Let's see if I can. Here we go. Wilderness of Paran. Here is the land of Sair. From this Zarok brook down here is the land of Sair. Here is the wilderness of Paran. This is where they're doing their fighting. In 10 days' time, Esau's seed again waged war with Sair's seed in the wilderness of Paran. And the battle was very severe upon Sair's seed. And Esau's seed prevailed at that time over Sair's seed. And Sair's seed were smitten before Esau's seed. And Esau's seed slew from them about 2,000 men. And all the mighty men of Sair's seed died in the battle. and there only remained their young children that were left in their cities. And all Midian and the east seed betook themselves to fight from the battle. And they left Seir's seed and fled when they saw that the battle was severe upon them. And Esau's seed pursued. Look at now, here's Esau's seed chasing after the people who were in league with them. And Esau's seed, I take it back. Esau's seed, they were in league with them at one point when they were fighting against Jacob, but in this particular battle, they were on the side of Seir's seed, weren't they? Yeah, I got to keep that in mind. And Esau's seed pursued all the east seed until they reached their land. And Esau's seed slew yet of them 250 men. And from the people of Esau's seed there fell in the battle about 30 men. But this evil came upon them through their brethren, turning from them to assist Seir the Horite's seed. And Esau's seed again heard of the evil doings of their brethren, and they again mourned on account of this. And it came to pass after the battle that Esau's seed turned back and came home to Seir. And Esau's seed slew those who had remained in the land of Seir's seed, and they slew their women and little ones. They left not a soul alive except 50 young lads and damsels whom they suffered to live. And Esau's seed did not put them to death. The lads became their avadim, their servants, and the damsels they took for women. And Esau's seed dwelt in Seir, in the place of Seir's seed, and they inherited their land and took possession of it. This is when the land of Seir, the Horite, is going to become the land of Edom. Talks about it in Genesis 36. Seir's seed has been wiped out. And Esau's seed took all belonging in the land of Seir's seed, also their flocks, their bullocks, their goods, all belonging to Seir's seed, did Esau's seed take. And Esau's seed dwelt in Seir, in the place of Seir's seed, unto this day. And Esau divided the land into divisions. And Esau's seed divided the land into divisions to the 5 sons of Esau according to their families. Here's the divisions. We saw that in Genesis 36 as well. And Nadab bore Eliphaz and Esau. Well, let's just look at the names because we saw that was just polluted. Eliphaz, Reuel, Yeush, Ya'alam, and Korah. These were the sons of Esau who were born to him in the land of Canaan. And it came to pass in those days that Esau's seed resolved to crown a king. Listen to what's going on right here. Esau's seed is going to crown a king over them in the land in which they became possessed. And they said to each other, not so, for he shall reign over us in our land, and we shall be under his counsel, and he shall fight our battles against our enemies. And they did so. And all Esau's seed swore, saying that none of their brethren should ever reign over them, but a strange man who is not of their brethren. For the souls of Esau's seed were embittered, every man against his son, brother, and friend, on account of the evil sustained from their brethren when they fought with Seir's seed. They don't even trust their own brethren at this point. What a case. Listen, what's going to happen? Therefore Esau's seed swore, saying, from that day forward they would not choose a king from their brethren, but one from a strange land unto this day. What was the commandment of Elohim regarding a king? We're going to see it in Deuteronomy. We're going to see it in Samuel. He says this. Here it is right here. Jehovah says, a foreigner shall not rule over his people. It is like they are trying to do the opposite of what Esau had learned. Hear that? Jehovah says a foreigner shall not rule over his people. They're saying a foreigner will rule over us. When you come to the land, this is Deuteronomy 17, when you come to the land which Jehovah your Elohim is giving you, and possess it and dwell in it, and say, I will set a king over me like all the other nations that are around me. That's what they were just saying. He will fight our battles. You shall surely set a king over you, whom Jehovah your Elohim chooses. Hear that? A king that Jehovah your Elohim chooses. That's the first thing. One from among your brethren you shall set as a king over you. That's the second thing. He says, you shall not set a foreigner, a Ben-Nakar, over you, who is not your brother. Well, they're doing just the opposite. These are men of the flesh. This is what we do. How many people are complaining right now? Obama is not even a citizen of the United States. Obama is all this. No, he's a foreigner. Well, I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I've heard. Don't really care. Not in my kingdom. And there was a man there from the people of Angias, king of Nineveh. His name was Bela, the son of Beor, who was a very valiant man, beautiful and comely and wise in all wisdom. A man of sense and counsel. Sounds like a good guy. And there was none of the people of Angias like him. Well, they chose him as a king. Look at, this is Genesis 36 again. All the kings are listed there, and it all agrees with Yasher. Again, it just builds more credibility for Yasher in my mind. Now, these were the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over Israel's seed. Here's the first one. Bela, son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Nineveh. Isn't that great? I just love seeing that. And Esau's seed took him and anointed him, and they crowned him for a king. And they bowed down to him, and they said unto him, May the king live! May the king live! Look what happens. Oh, we're going to see this so many times in Yasher. Watch for it. And they spread out the sheet. A sheet probably is what they spread out. And they brought him every man, every ish, earrings of gold and silver, or rings or bracelets. They made him very rich in silver and in gold, in onyx stones and bdellium. And they made him a royal throne, and they placed a regal crown on his head, and they built a palace for him, and he dwelt therein, and he became king over all Esau's seed. Watch for this to happen with future people. And the people of Angias took their hire from their battle from Esau's seed. They were mercenaries. They're going to take their hire now. Remember, they got all the silver, all the gold, everything that Sair had is now theirs. They're wealthy. They can give them their due. By the way, I was thinking about men, mercenaries. Those who live by the sword die by the sword. That's what happened to Esau, wasn't it? Remember, we saw Esau took, when he was 15 years old. How old are you, Caden?
11.
11. 4 years older than this young man. He took his sword, waited in ambush for Nimrod, and killed Nimrod, cut off his head, the same way his head got cut off. Cut off his head and killed 2 of his armed bodyguards. 15 years old. Those who live by the sword die by the sword. What made me think about that? And Bela reigned. And Bela reigned over Esau's seed 30 years. 30 years, remember that. And Esau's seed dwelt in the land instead of Seir's seed. And they dwelt securely in their stead unto this day. I have a note here. It says Joseph will die at 110, which is only 39 years away. 39 years away. Magron rules 40 years. So Joseph dies a year before him. Let's talk about who Magron is. And it came to pass in the 32nd year of Israelites going down to Egypt. This is our 32nd year in Egypt. That is the 71st year of Joseph's life, of the life of Joseph, Joseph's life. In that year died Pharaoh, king of Egypt. This is the man who loved. Joseph is now, did I say what Joseph was? 70 years old. Joseph is 71 right now when this man's going to die. He's been ruling Egypt. What did it say? We've been here 32nd years, and we're going to add 9 to that. That's 41. Joseph's been ruling Egypt for 41 years at this point. He's still going to go till another 110. So we're talking 49, whatever 49 is, 71 years. He's still going to rule. Pharaoh died, king of Egypt, and Magron, his son, reigned in his stead. And Pharaoh commanded Joseph before his death to be a father to his son Magron. And Magron should be under the care of Joseph and under his counsel. Well, he was under his care and under his counsel for the majority of his life, the whole of his life, really. Remember, he's going to die a year after Joseph dies. And all Egypt consented to do this thing, that Joseph should be king over them. For all the Egyptians loved Joseph as of heretofore. Why would they love Joseph? What has Joseph done? We're going to see much of what Joseph has done. But remember, up until now, he saved Egypt from complete destruction by preserving them with the 7 years of good food when the 7 years of famine were coming. He enriched Egypt because he was able to sell that food to the whole world. And the whole world became their servants, giving them tithes. They got all their cattle, they got all their gold, they got all their silver, they got all their bdellium, their onyx stones. Anything of value came to Joseph and Egypt. They loved Joseph. Talk about prospering under his reign. And all the Egyptians consented to this thing, that Joseph should be king over them. For all the Egyptians loved Joseph as of heretofore. Only Magron, the son of Pharaoh, sat upon his father's throne, and he became in those days in his father's stead. And Magron was 41 years old when he began to reign. And 40 years he reigned in Egypt. And all Egypt called his name Pharaoh, after the name of his father, as was their custom to do in Egypt, to every king that reigned over them. Do you remember? I had a note, apparently didn't get saved. My computer shut down in a storm we had the other day, so I think I lost that particular note. But there was a man that talked about early on in Yasher. I'd love to think of what his name was, and I can't think of it right now. But he did something, put a tax on the Egyptians. He did it by force. Hired a bunch of armed men to guard the cemetery. And they charged people to bury their dead. That's what we do now, isn't it? Charge people to bury their dead. But they ended up liking him. They gave him a name. The name they gave him was Pharaoh. And every king that came after them was always going to be called Pharaoh. They made him king instead of the king that they had. And it came to pass when Pharaoh reigned in his father's stead, he placed the laws of Egypt and all the affairs of government in the hands of Joseph, as his father had commanded him. And Joseph became king over Egypt, for he superintended over all Egypt. And all Egypt was under his care and under his counsel. For all Egypt inclined to Joseph after the death of Pharaoh, and they loved him exceedingly to reign over them. But there were some people among them who did not like him, saying, "No stranger shall reign over us." Still the whole government of Egypt devolved in those days upon Joseph after the death of Pharaoh, and he, being the regulator, doing as he liked throughout the land without anyone interfering. And all Egypt was under the care of Joseph. And Joseph made war with all the surrounding enemies, and he subdued them also, all the land of the Philistines. Unto the border of Canaan did Joseph subdue. And they were under his power, and they gave a yearly tax unto Joseph. Hear that? Egypt is growing exponentially because of this man in their midst. Do you remember what Jacob told Joseph before he died? He said, "Protect your brothers from the Egyptians. Care for them." Is it any wonder that during this time period, we were fruitful and multiplied and filled Egypt? This is going to be the problem that we're having after Joseph dies. There's so many of those guys. What are we going to do? All Egypt was under the care of Joseph. And Pharaoh, king of Egypt, sat upon his throne in his father's stead. But he was under the control and counsel of Joseph, as he was at first under the counsel of his father. This man, Pharaoh, really never led Egypt, did he? Neither did he reign but in the land of Egypt only, under the counsel of Joseph. But Joseph reigned over the whole country at that time, from the land of Egypt unto the river Perath. I don't know where the river of Perath is. I can't find it. Can't find anything about it. And Joseph was successful in all his ways, and Jehovah was with him. And Jehovah gave Joseph additional wisdom and honor and glory and love toward him in the hearts of the Egyptians and throughout the land. And Joseph reigned over the whole country 40 years. 40 years. This is how long he's going to live. And all the Philistines, and all the countries of the Philistines, and Canaan, and Sidon, and on the other side of the Jordan brought presents to Joseph all his days. And the whole country was in the hand of Joseph. And they brought unto him a yearly tribute as it was regulated. For Joseph had fought against all his surrounding enemies and subdued them. And the whole country was in the hands of Joseph. and Joseph sat securely upon his throne in Egypt. The Philistines, the Canaanites, the Sidonites, and the people on the other side of the Jordan. Huge territory he's conquered. And also all his brethren, Jacob's seed, dwelt securely in the land all the days of Joseph. And they were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly in the land, and they served Jehovah. Hear that? They're living in the land of Egypt, but who are they serving? Pharaoh? Joseph? No, it says they served Jehovah all their days, as their father Jacob had commanded them. That's what Jacob told him to do. Serve only Jehovah. And it came to pass at the end of many days and years, when Esau's seed were dwelling quietly in the land with Bela their king. Remember, Bela took over. He was going to rule 30 years, wasn't he? And Esau's seed were fruitful and multiplied in the land. They're being fruitful and multiplying. And they resolved to go and fight with Jacob's seed and all Egypt. Hear that? Some people just never learn. You can't fight Jacob's seed. Every time they've fought him, they've lost. They're going to do it again. But this time they're going to fight Jacob's seed and all Egypt. And to deliver their brother Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, remember Eliphaz is still in the land there, and his men, for they were yet in those days servants to Joseph. They say slaves, it's servants, Avadim. And Esau's seed sent unto these seed. They were just fighting with them just last chapter, weren't they? And they made peace with them. And all the east seed came unto them to go to Esau's seed to Egypt to battle. Silly guys. And there came also unto them of the people of Angias, king of Dibonah, and they also sent to Ishmael's seed, and they also came unto them. So now we've got 4 countries' armies. And the people assembled and came unto Seir to assist Esau's seed in their battle. And this company was very large and heavy with people, numerous as the sands of the sea. There it is again, sands of the sea. How many is that? About 800,000 men. Oh, okay, that puts it in a new perspective, doesn't it? Infantry and cavalry. And all these troops went down to Egypt to fight Jacob's seed, and they encamped by Ramses. Wow, coming right into the city again. And Joseph went forth with his brethren, with the mighty men of Egypt, about 600 men. Hear that? Joseph is going with his brethren and about 600 men of Egypt, the mighty men of Egypt. 600 men against 800,000. One of the things I lost was the how much that was, but it was over 1,000 to 1 odds when we're talking about how many men it was. And they fought with them in the land of Ramses. And Jacob's seed at that time again fought with Esau's seed. In the 50th year of Jacob's seed going down to Egypt. That is the 30th year of the reign of Bela. Did you hear that? The 30th year of the reign of Bela. What happened when Bela reigned for 30 years? Do you remember? He died. I saw this and I thought, oh, he's going to die in this battle. That is the 30th year of the reign of Bela over Esau's seed in Seir. And Jehovah gave the mighty men, Esau's mighty men, and the east seed into the hand of Joseph and his brethren. And the people of Esau's seed and the east seed were smitten before Joseph. And Esau's seed and the east seed that were slain there fell before Jacob's seed, about 200,000 men. What did we say? 800,000? 800,000. Now we've got 200,000 have been killed. And their king, Bela the son of Beor, fell with them in the battle. And when Esau's seed saw that their king had fallen in battle and was dead, their hands became weak in the combat. They got afraid. And Joseph and his brethren and all Egypt were still smiting the people of Esau's house. Men! And all Esau's people were afraid of Jacob's seed and fled from before them. And all Esau's people were afraid of Jacob's seed and fled from before them. And Joseph and all his brethren and all Egypt pursued them a day's journey. And they slew yet from them about 300 men, continuing to smite them in the road. And they afterwards turned back from them. And Joseph and all his brethren returned to Egypt. Not one man was missing from them. Hear that? Of Israel's seed, not one man was lost. Ooh, I love seeing that. But of the Egyptians, 12 men fell. And when Joseph returned to Egypt, he ordered Zepho and his men to be additionally bound. Every time we fight against Esau's men, Joseph comes back and wreaks havoc on Zepho and the 50 men that were with them. He's doing it again. In fact, I put on this one, they bound them in irons and they increased their grief. I says, that seems unnecessary. Why is he doing that? Is it something to do with, if you're going to keep fighting with us, Esau, we're going to make it worse for the people that you're trying to rescue? Maybe that's what's going on, to discourage any further aggression. Could that be? Maybe. I don't know. And all the people of Esau's seed and the east seed returned in shame, each unto his city. For all the mighty men that were with them fell in battle. And when Esau's seed saw that their king had died in battle, they hastened and took a man from the people of the east seed. His name was Jobab, the son of Zerah, from the land of Basra. Now this confuses me. The land of Basra. Where's the land of Basra? We're talking about the east seed. Here, let me show you where Basra is. Basra still exists, I believe. Basra. Let's go to the map. Here it is. Here's Basra. Maybe it's a different spelling. I would think the people of the east have to be coming from this area. That's where Ishmael took his people, and those are the people of the east. But here it's saying Basra. Well, it agrees with Torah. I'll say that for it. Let's take a look. It says, Jobab, the son of Zerah, from the land of Basra. And here it is. And Bela died. Jobab, the son of Zerah of Basra, reigned in his place. Well, I like the agreement. Don't understand where Basra is. And Jobab sat on the throne of Bela as king in his stead. And Jobab reigned in Edom over Esau's seed 10 years. So we had one guy reigning for 30 years. Now here's 10 years. And Esau's seed went no more to fight with Jacob's seed from that day forward. For Esau's seed knew the valor of Jacob's seed, and they were greatly afraid of them. They're finally learning. Took them all the life of Esau and another 30 years beyond that. But from that day forward, Esau's seed hated Jacob's seed. From that day forward, Esau's seed hated Jacob's seed. When did Esau's seed ever love Jacob's seed? They have been antagonistic towards one another the whole of their life, practically. And it came to pass after this, at the end of 10 years, Jobab, the son of Zerah, from Basra died. And Esau's seed took a man whose name was Cusham, from the land of Taman. And they made him king over them instead of Jobab. And Cusham reigned in Edom over all Esau's seed for 20 years. 30, 10, now 20. 60 years. Here it is, Torah. When Jobab died, Cushim, the land of the Temanites. What did he say? The land of Teman, the land of the Temanites, reigned in his place. And Joseph, king of Egypt, and his brethren, and all Israel's seed dwelt securely in Egypt in those days, together with all of Joseph's seed and all his brethren. Joseph's seed and his brethren. Seems a little bit redundant to me in saying it that way. Having no hindrance or evil accidents. And the land of Egypt was at that time at rest from war in the days of Joseph and his brethren. Well, here's who's down there. In these days, and these are the names of Israel's seed who dwelt in Egypt. I don't know why they're giving them to us again. They gave us the same names when we went into Egypt several chapters ago. Who had come with Jacob. All Jacob's seed came unto Egypt, every man with his household. Jacob's seed. Remember, these are all the men who descended from his yoke. They're going to name ladies, but they're going to say the men, and then they're going to say, and their sister Dinah. She's not one of the seed. Let's remember that. So, I'm not going to go through this again. We've gone through these lists over and over and over again. We had here, this was interesting. This is where I discovered that we were talking about Jochebed being the daughter of Levi. This is where I first discovered it. And Levi's seed were Gershom, Kohath, and Merari, and their sister Jochebed. Hear that? They had a sister. We hardly know that they had a sister. But this is so interesting because remember, we're talking about, everyone believes we were in Egypt for how long? They came out of Egypt 430 years to the day. Well, so what? Does that mean we were in Egypt for 430 years? It means we came out from Egypt 430 years from the day. What day are we talking about? We assume it's the day we went into Egypt, don't we? But that's incorrect. How can we be in Egypt for 430 years and have Jochebed, the mother of Moses, be the daughter of Levi? You see how that cramps your style a whole lot? It's got to change the way we think. We've got to look at these numbers. Did she have Moses? What's 430 minus 80? 350. She had to be 350 years old when she had Moses. Well, she had Moses when she was 135, 140. But all these things impact the way we think and the way we understand the word. I'm going to pick it up right here. And all the souls that went forth from Jacob's yoke were 70 souls. These are they who came with Jacob, their father, unto Egypt to dwell there. And Joseph and all his brethren dwelt securely in Egypt. And they ate at the best, and they ate of the best of Egypt all the days of the life of Joseph. Joseph lived in the land of Egypt 93 years, and Joseph reigned over all Egypt 80 years. From 30, remember, they took him out of prison when he was 30 years old, having spent 13 years already in Egypt. They took him out of prison, and from that day until the day of his death, he reigned over Egypt 80 years. And when the days of Joseph drew nigh that he should die, he sent and called for his brethren and all his father's household. And they all came together and sat before him. And Joseph said unto his brethren and unto the whole of his father's household, Behold, I die. You know what? Ask yourself this, has any of his brothers died yet? Joseph is going to be the first one. Remember, he's the second youngest. He's going to be the first one to die. And Elohim will surely visit you and bring you up from the land to the land which he swore to your fathers to give unto them. And it shall be when Elohim shall visit you to bring you up from here to the land of your fathers, then bring my bones with you from here. And Joseph made Israel's seed swear for their seed. Hear that? Israel's seed is swearing for their seed, their sons and their sons' sons, after them, saying, Elohim will surely visit you, and you shall bring up my bones with you from here. And it came to pass after this that Joseph died in that year, the 71st year of the Israelites going down to Egypt. Hear that? They're going to be in Egypt 210 years. Maybe 215. I think it's 210. But for 71 years, they were blessed because of Joseph, his provision for them and his protection for them, allowing them to serve only Yehovah. But now things are going to begin to change. We're going to see next week that they trick us into working for them. They have an ulterior motive. But let's continue with this story right now. It says, and Joseph was 110 years old when he died in the land of Egypt. And all his brethren and all the servants rose up, and they embalmed Joseph as was their custom. Now, think about all this stuff that has happened. We've got, 30 years that Bela reigned, 10 years that Jobab reigned, and another bunch of years that this other man reigned. But yet we have in Torah Jacob dying, and then basically Joseph dying right after him. Hardly seems like there's any space in between. And yet from 47 to 71, how many years is that? That's how long Joseph continued to reign after Jacob died. We don't see that time period because we don't take the time to sort it out in our minds. And they put Joseph in a coffin, filled it with spices and all sorts of perfume. And they buried him by the side of the river. That is Sihor. Sihor. What is Sihor? That's the Nile. It means black, dark. The name given to the river Nile. Interesting. Probably the river of Egypt. And it came to pass, after the death of Joseph, all the Egyptians began in those days to rule over Israel's seed. Remember, Joseph was protecting Israel's seed by oath from his father. Now he's not there to protect them. And Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who reigned in his father's stead, took all the laws of Egypt and conducted the whole government of Egypt under his counsel, and he reigned securely over his people. Now, they don't say that, but remember, Joseph was going to reign for another 39 years. Wasn't that what it was? 39 years, and this guy was going to reign 40 years? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this guy's not going to live very long, apparently. But now we're going to have a little bit of change in our story. And I want to include, so I think it's interesting, we're going to talk about what's going on with Zepho. We're going to talk about what's going on with the king of Nineveh. And I don't think we're going to get to, I know we won't get to it today, but we will get to it next week. We're going to see Balaam introduced to us for the first time as a 15-year-old boy. This is the man that's basically going to plague Moses wherever he goes. Oh my goodness, we've got chapters that we've got to see about reigning in Cush, in prison, in Jethro's prison. They called him priest of Midian. No, prince of Midian. Is going to be in a prison confined by, what did I say his name was? Raoul. He had several names. For 10 years. Well, I wonder if I should stop here. You know what? I think I will stop here. Do I want to stop here, honey? She says I should.
Well, no, don't blame it on me.
Don't blame it. It's completely my idea. She had nothing to do with it.
No.
Yeah, you know what? We're trying to do a little bit shorter class, because these classes do get a little bit long. We're covering a lot of material. I'd really like you to think about the material that we're covering. This is really interesting stuff. We've got to think about how it all fits together. But let's do this next week. We're going to talk about what's going on in Africa. Zepho. He's going to be released, apparently, from Egypt. Joseph was holding him. But Joseph is dead. It looks like Zepho and his men are going to be set free. And they're angry, and they want to get back at Joseph. Okay, well, let's stop right now. We'll catch you all next week with the rest of the story. Well, with a continuing of this story. All right. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you later. Bye now.